Today's topic is...
breaking down the 19th Legion's design and lore.
They returned to the shadows and were seen nevermore.
I disappear.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to WAYPN. I'm Cal.
I'm Sunny.
Today we're going to be exploring the pre-heresy, post-heresy, and a redesign of the 19th Legion.
And within these segments, we'll be covering design breakdown and analysis, art, design versus lore, and final notes.
And what Sunny knows, if she knows anything about the Legion at all.
And not particularly in that order?
Alright, let's get to it.
Design breakdown.
Alright, Sunny, are you ready for your very first Legionary?
Yeah. Ooh, hold on, Cal. Isn't this an Iron Warrior?
I don't know, is it?
Maybe not. Anyhow, he's mostly still with black trims, and I see the symbol for him being a Terran soldier. Speaking of, I just realized this, but skull with lightning coming from the sides for the symbol. After seeing the Ultramarines video, I realized that these lightning motifs are a play on the arrows for the Roman Republic symbol.
Yeah.
So you already knew that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I guess I'm not hurt at all.
You have seen the Imperial symbol, right? The one with the two-headed eagle?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't think that looks mildly Roman?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I didn't know these things until we did the video, okay? Anyhow, he's got a bright red visor, and he's got some symbols on the forearms that are hard to make out. Other than that, I think he feels really mechanical from the color use, and he looks like a regular tactical marine.
Alright, is there anything else that you can pick up from this guy?
No, I don't think so.
I see, so he's just covered in shadow.
I feel like that's foreshadowing. Let's go to the next one.
Alright, here's the next one.
Oh, I know those wing symbols on the pauldron, and he's all black, plus the dead giveaway of the bird skull on the wrist. It's the
That's Shadow Legion.
Raven Guard?
Oh, okay, so you are certain. I was going to see if I could take you off. Alright, I guess it's time for What Sunny Knows. What does Sunny know? Does Sunny know anything at all?
A little bit. So I know the Raven God's Primarch is Corvus Corax, Mr. Crow. Yeah. I often get it mixed up with Conrad Kurz, too.
You know what? From an outsider perspective, I can see how a lot of people might have that problem, and they are memed to death.
Are they?
Yeah, so like the two of them are fighting, and then Sanguinius shines a light on them, and they both just hiss at the light.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I thought it was gonna be like the Spider-Man meme where they like point at each other or something. Yeah, because they look similar, and also the name also have like the alliteration.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, why did they even do that? Anyhow, I know they're meant to be the Stealth Legion. I imagined them to be like SWAT or like... Why did I say it like that? SWAT, not SWAT.
What?
SWAT, you know, like the
like
SWAT
the police.
team. Yeah, the police, yeah, or even...
But the police aren't exactly that stealthy.
They look like SWAT team. That's the thing that I'm trying to say. Anyhow, they're even like silent assassins. They're very nimble, quick, and efficient. That's how I imagine them anyway, from, you know, reverse osmosis or whatever it is that you said that I know from being in the community.
Just regular osmosis.
Regular osmosis.
Not reverse osmosis.
Right. We're not a water tank. Got it. You know, because that's...
What is happening today? All right, let's move on to your
they
analysis.
They fly around a lot. They have...
Let's move on.
Yeah, okay.
Back to Design Breakdown. Either we are the worst AI ever or the best AI ever.
The best.
Because people are accusing us of being AI, and I just think about what that disaster just was, and I'm like, how do you program an AI to have that interaction?
I don't know.
Because I don't know how it happened. Can you actually give us an analysis?
Yes. So, well, he's all black, and we know they are...
He's not all black, though.
Mostly black, okay? So they're stealthy boys, so that checks out. I do like the bright silver arms. I think it adds a nice visual breaker and shows off the raven wing symbols. They have kept the red eyes. Normally, that would mean that they are rage-filled or they have an aggressive view on the world. But I feel that for this Legion, it's a bit more of a practical thing, because when you see it in a group setting, you could imagine like all of them are shadowed, but you only see the red eyes. Like, you know how you see in cartoons, people are in the woods and then like, I feel like I'm being watched. And then they're like a million eyes pop out and it scares you. And I'm imagining it from that angle. I think that's what it's meant to be.
Okay, so you're saying it's a design choice rather than meaning to show something about them in particular?
Yes, correct.
Well, are you ready for a real Raven Guard?
Why are you breathing so hard?
I don't know. I was doing a bit. But anyway, here he is.
Yeah, now he's completely black. This is the classic look of the Raven Guard that I'm used to. And it actually looks a lot like the Corvus Black paint because it's not a true pitch black.
Well, actually, it's not like the Corvus Black paint because the Corvus Black paint is slightly grey, whereas this is much more like a...
Matte black?
Yeah, matte black.
Because you can see from the symbols are quote-unquote darker than the black of the armor itself. And this is something we do in graphic design. It's called black-on-black printing, and it's a play on contrasts of kind. So sometimes it's done with UV printing to get the gloss finish or hot foil printing, but it has a shiny, slightly raised effect on the black paper, so it contrasts against the matte of the paper, and it looks really cool when it shifts in the light. And that is what this armor is reminding me of.
So we did a couple of videos on how to get better at painting where we talked about the theory behind painting, and one of the big things that we talked about was contrast of kind. Would you like to explain it for just a hot minute?
So contrast of kind is basically what it sounds like when you have different textures that contrast against each other, and creating contrast that way rather than with maybe values or colors. Yeah,
so a contrast of kind is anytime you can get a contrast, not because of colors and not because of values, but because of some other property, for perhaps hard and smooth, things like this.
Yes, correct. So this is what contrast of kind is on this particular template.
So if you want to become a better painter, here's the link.
Again, the eyes and lenses here are red, and that's consistent. I do feel it could be a bit brighter, though, to really emphasize the eyes and make it feel like you're being watched. But other than that, I think it's pretty practical for what they are.
I do feel as if that this is a bit of a miss design-wise, though, because being all black with nothing breaking it up, nothing at all, it does make it very difficult to translate that to the table. And I feel like this will encourage the lazy hobbyist who's going to prime it, and they're like, it's done.
Well, I'm not so 100% sure how I get what you're saying, but if you are in it to just play, it's a cheap...
my god, no, because like the whole point of play is that the miniatures are readable. Imagine every miniature like this, and you
won't be able to tell like who's your captain, who's your marine, and
no. If it's you can, but your opponent definitely can't.
Plus, like in the stress of the game, even if you knew them, you're probably like, wait, hold on. I think it was this guy.
Yeah,
I think you're definitely right on that.
Anyway, how about
I've got one more point.
Okay,
I do have comments about the pattern of the armor itself, but I understand that they go through an evolution, so I don't think it's very relevant for me to point it out here. So I'm gonna wait till I see the Corvus pattern armor.
And I think this is one of the problems with what Sunny knows, because you actually know the armor marks pretty well, and once you know that there's one called the Corvus pattern, like obviously you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's the Raven Guard armor.
Yeah, correct, exactly. And considering that's specific to them, I want to see that first, and technically,
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Oh yeah, this Terminator looks extra intimidating because he's all black and it looks like you're staring into an abyss, so I think that's very effective design. I also really like that they've modified their Aquila to have the crow skull and wings, which is fitting for their name, Raven Guard, and the important symbols are marked out in white or like a silver color, so you can see them better.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense too, because for an all black Legion, it's going to be hard to know who's who, like we mentioned before. So if you have just your important symbols in a different color, that can identify better on the field.
Yeah, and just pointing out for the pedantic, we know that black and white are not colors but shades, but please go on.
Yeah, so other than that point, I think if you're a stealth Legion, you don't want to blow your cover but still be identifiable, this is a pretty good middle ground. Not the best, but yeah.
I think this is the problem of reality reality versus design.
Yeah.
So in reality, that previous design we looked at is probably the perfect design for them. But when it comes to the tabletop, is it practical for that? And that's the problem. Take, for example, the All Blacks. Do you know them?
No, I don't.
They're a rugby team. They're the New Zealand rugby team,
okay.
right? What they have is an all black uniform, very similar to what you see here, except with the leaf pattern that they've got on it, which is in the same color as they present here, a sort of silver white.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So as a final point, I do see some of those glossy black motifs over the pauldron and shin, but it's really hard to make out in this one. Other than that, that's all I have to say.
All right, Sonny, are you ready for your next guy? He's a big boy.
Ooh, Dreadnought, and he kind of gives me Grim Reaper vibes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, it has that feeling. But anyhow, the Raven features really come through.
Oh, yeah, they do.
With the sharp beak mask. And the claw hands, too, because that looks
I think more the beak mask, because we're used to those claw hands, but it does sort of combine with those claw hands.
Yes, correct. So it's like, what is that, circumstantial? That it just works out when you have the claws and the beak. It fits their theme, right? They could try to modify the feet to have a similar claw-like shape, too, and like a pointed toes, just to tie it in even better, or even like feather carvings to something. Yeah, but I think because I don't know much about their Legion, it's hard to try and think, how can we make him more impactful other than turning him more into a crow, right? So I guess we could play with the idea of crows being seen as a bad omen, but I'm not sure how we would visualize that.
I actually want to come back to this later about being a big crow, because I have an idea for a redesign, but it's mildly ridiculous.
Okay, sure. But other than that, I think this looks very ominous all on its own, so I think from that perspective it works.
Thinking about working, it's time for you to work some more.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, my beaky boy. Yeah, I think he's got all the right elements going for him. He's fully black. He has some glossy feather motifs around the ankles. It's really hard to make out, though, but other than that, you've got the bird skull on the belt to bring in some visual interest. Some, exactly. As I'm looking through these templates, it does seem that they have a very uniform, very militaristic look, and since they have a Raven theme, it's quite restricting in terms of how you would design this Legion. Yeah, it's a very simple and straightforward concept. Like, it's so hard to maneuver creatively with them because they're Stealth Legion. I mean, look at all the visual interest points on this template. It's a beaky mask, Raven God logo, which appears 3 times, the split lightning symbol on the knee, and the bird skull. The fact that they have used the Raven Guard logo 3 times alone in the front profile shows how it's difficult for GW to think about what to do with it.
I think the problem is these guys are essentially the reverse of the salamanders who we just looked at. When it comes to the salamanders, we have a lot of things that we can work with, right? We can work with the salamanders, of course, but we can also work with the flame motif. We can work with a lot of things, right? But when it comes to this idea, all right, they're a stealth legion and they're a bird legion, and it becomes more and more restrictive rather than more and more opening.
Yeah, so I already see a few, pitfalls that we're gonna fall into trying to redesign.
All right, would you like to say what some of these pitfalls will be so that people can see your psychic powers once more?
Oh, okay. So mainly, this seems like a very practical Legion. Like I said, they're stealth. What can you do with that? You're supposed to be secretive. You're meant to stay in the shadows. You're not meant to be seen a lot. So when you have that, you're gonna have the problem of the color choice, which we've pointed out already. And then you've also added on the theme of ravens, which in conjunction with black, it just fits.
Yeah, of course it fits.
It's another circumstantial thing.
But I think the other problem is human vision here. When we take a look at ravens, often people just see black birds, but the issue is we have our petty human vision, but you can see it when you actually turn one of their feathers.
Yeah.
And it has all of those resplendent colors, which birds can probably see, but we can't.
Correct. Yes, correct. So that is something that I'm also thinking about in terms of redesign, but again, I'm not sure how effective that will be.
Yeah, and that's essentially the issue. You've handcuffed yourself, and then you're like, well, you know what? That was a silly idea. So then you foot cuff yourself, and you're like, why is this
What's
better?
happening? So right off the bat, some of the ways that I'm thinking about that you could redesign is the armor itself. Make them more aerodynamic, redesign the whole thing, not just the beaky mask, but the suit as well.
Okay.
And you could also add cloaking tech because they're stealth. So we did...
How are we going to show that, though?
With hexagon shapes like we did with our Missing Tau unit video.
Oh, the Missing Tau unit. Yeah, I remember that episode.
We could also try to show off more Raven Guard specific cultural habits. Like with the World Eaters, they would have the counting strike marks to show their kill streak. Or they could have the tribal markings to show that they're more superstitious, blah, blah, blah. But
it's really interesting that you say a lot of these things because I think that they should fit, and I'll explain a little while later in the design versus law.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't know much about their story, so I can't really bring up these things, but here are some parameters that I'm thinking of already. So we should probably wait till after design versus lore to think about some redesigns.
All right, that sounds like you want to move on to design versus law. It is a fundamental truth that many people fail to accept, that victims often end up becoming victimizers. It is hard to be notable for your cruelty and your viciousness during the Age of Strife, particularly during the Unification Wars. There were many petty tyrants, some that called upon ruinous powers, which was obviously chaos, but these had far more traditional treachery and betrayal sown amongst their people. The ethnarchy of the Indonesian bloc was not known for their kindness. In fact, you can kind of tell already with their name what kind of society it was. This was a bloc that burned scientists at the stake. This was a bloc of a racial hierarchy. These were not kind people, and the people who were right next to them were the people from whom the Raven Guard hailed. The Xeric tribes, we would know them as Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and parts of China. Sunny, I'd like you to take a look at this map. Here is the Xeric tribes.
Yeah, it's really small.
Not only was it very small, it wasn't resource rich, and when the Emperor came with his tides of warriors, they had no hope of resisting them.
I see that.
So they were to tithe their firstborn sons to his gene labs, and once they did, the Raven Guard was born. But as was the case with many other legions, they were a nameless people at this time. However, their actions were far from nameless, and that word is cruelty. They had adopted the cultures of their forefathers, and that culture was a culture of striking viciously, rapidly, and cruelly, so everybody would remember who you are, and they would not strike you without being punished. They also had a particular hatred for tyrants and slavers. Ironic is it that they believed that they could only truly defeat an enemy once they were completely broken. When faced with hordes of enemies from the tyrants of Ush, they deployed rapidly with massive numbers, crushing them. However, the tyrants of Ush also used techno-enhanced psychers as well as psi weaponry. You may be asking why? Why do I call them victimizers? Well, take a look at their tactics. Rapid, massive deployments. And who do they attack? The people, not the tyrants. They don't go for the head. They destroy the body because they want these people to be broken.
It sounds like they're the tyrants.
Indeed, the tyrannized will become the tyrants if they are able to grab onto power like this. If they do not achieve it through just means, they will use it against their enemies, and they will use it with gusto.
The red eyes are making a lot of sense now.
Once again, the victors become victims. A darkness haunts this legion after that success. Perhaps those psychic attacks left something lasting, left a scar upon the soul of the legion. At this point in time, perhaps you are saying, no, Cal, you are wrong. People can become better, even if they are victims. And I agree, but it is certainly not the case with this legion. After the battles of Ursh, in fact, they became even more vicious, even more cruel, even more suicidal with their rapid attacks. How vicious, might you ask? I will tell you how vicious. During their solar campaign, they wiped out an alien race. But of course, at the humble cost of every human colonist on that moon. Even the gene rights of the Emperor thought that they went too far and pulled them back, and they were never a part of the Legion once again. Let us not forget just how practical some of these people were. They were no strangers to cruelty, practicality, and viciousness. They thought that Chthoniya should be wiped from the map because of what a problem it was. Despite this, people could find value in that world, but not the gene rights here with actual space marines. But why would I speak of the War Council and Chthoniya? Because the War Council did not know what to do with this legion. But the Chthonians did. Specifically one Chthonian, Horus Lupercal. He saw a use for them, a use like none other. In fact, he almost used them as a chapter of his own legion. He used them as the blade in the darkness, while people focused on the sword in front of them. That sword was the Lunar Wolves. Their goal was to cut off retreats, supplies, and salvation from the enemy, and to watch carefully and dreadfully the broken remnants of the enemy in case rebellion was in their hearts. Is it any wonder that their own Primarch was disgusted by them and sent them away? Corvus Corax was born unto a world as a prisoner. Not having the power and privilege of many of his other Primarch brothers, he was not raised in a noble family, but instead by hundreds and thousands of slaves, people who would shelter him at all costs because they saw him as their salvation, which he would become.
Oh, okay. They're sounding quite similar to the Night Lords at this point because the Primarch hates them and they're also cruelty-based. And when it came to actually how Horus found a purpose for them, they actually feel like the dark side of the moon in this case because they're the ones in the shadow and then the Lunar Wolves are ones in the front.
Interesting.
And
okay.
color choice-wise, it's like a reverse.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now.
So
yeah.
I kind of see a little bit of that connection in terms of story, but with the way that you've described them, they sound so supremely aggressive. Like, unlike other legions that are aggressive, this one's just like maniac level of aggressive that it didn't actually fit the whole black scheme. And I was just like, where's that coming in? But then once I heard the Horus part, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that kind of fits. All
right, fair enough. All right, I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Corvus Corax's rebellion was so unlike his legionaries. It was slow, it was meticulous, it was well planned out. The final phase was lightning fast, much like his legionaries, and he put to use murderers, psychopaths of all kinds so that he could achieve his goals. He was a practical man. Despite the years of build-up, despite the meticulous planning, it was still bloody and sorrow-filled. He sent demands to the tyrants who had put all of these people as prisoners on this moon, but despite him being fair and just and equitable, they did not wish to listen. They would pay for their hubris.
Of course.
He had been creating crude atomic bombs from the various materials that they had there. The tyrants, of course, thought that no such thing was possible.
Of course.
But his workers were not some droll idiots. They were the dissidents of this regime. Dissidents of all kinds, including political dissidents, ones which he learned from. This is why he sent those demands, because he believed in a better and just future. But there was only one person that could stop this atomic bombardment.
And who's that?
The Emperor himself. He came silently into the system and spoke to Corvus Corax alone. And this is why I believe the Emperor trusts Corax over all of the other Primarchs.
Oh, but hasn't the Emperor visited the other Primarchs as well?
But not alone.
Oh, okay. Now I'm intrigued.
Certainly not alone. Take a look at how he visited Angron.
I thought he actually visited Angron by himself. He basically plucked him off before he was able to complete his task.
And you know what he did with Corvus Corax?
What did he do?
He left. He left him to his own devices.
Oh.
And then the Raven rained atomic fire upon that planet, killing millions.
I think it's because the Emperor and Corax were probably on the same page. Emperor didn't tell him that, but he was like, you're already doing the thing that I would probably do myself. And he let him do it.
I think this is true. I think that he wanted him to experience the cost personally because he knew that regardless of how kind and just he was, it would never be enough for the people below. They would only learn through atomic fire.
Right.
And once he did, he liberated the rest of the planet. But he had to do that action. And I think it was that made the Emperor and the Raven simpatico.
Okay.
Now, I don't have to surprise you about Istvan, so the reason why I think he is the most trusted is because he was given gene secrets to help breed his sons very quickly after Istvan, right? No other legion was given this information. But, of course, the Alpha Legion came along and corrupted that, and then all of his gene sons were these hideous mutations instead, which he was not bitter about at all, and he ended up killing them all.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. But I want to actually lead to a completely separate and surprise segment in this.
Oh, yeah?
The Carcharodons.
Oh, the Carcharodons.
You know them from the Badab War
yep.
and the cruelty and viciousness that they have. Now, many people think that they actually come from the Night Lords instead of the Raven Guard, but I would like you to describe the features of these early Raven Guard.
They were vicious, they were cruel, rapid deployment. They would break down the people that they were, facing, and then watch them afterwards to make sure they don't betray or deviate.
And what was their role in the Badab War?
To break and destroy the Lamenters and the Mantis Warriors and then watch them afterwards.
Exactly. Doesn't that sound exactly like these early Raven Guard people who were exiled by, of course, the Raven himself?
Yes, and I do see the correlations here, but I can also see how they're very similar in terms of terror tactics like the Night Lords and why people would think that the Night Lords were their
I can see what you're saying, but here is the final nail in the coffin.
Oh, yeah?
So the Carcharodons are island themed, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
All right, now, there's the Polynesian area, there's the Micronesia area, and, of course, there is the Melanesian area, and they all fall under what of the old Terran map? Let me show it to you and tell me who they belong to.
The Indonesian bloc.
Now, people draw from their own fears. For example, the Batman comes from Bruce Wayne's fear of bats. Now, what is the fear of the Raven Guard?
They're slavers?
Yes, more specifically, the Indonesian bloc, and they would paint themselves in the colours of these tyrants in their opinion.
Yeah.
And they would become like them. They would become feared. They would never allow themselves to be rejected by other people ever again.
Yeah.
Because they would always be the ones in control.
Yep, makes sense to me.
And thus ends my very long lesson on how victims become victimizers and why the Carcharodons are obviously the stock of the Raven Guard.
I think that all makes sense to me.
What have you thought of the Raven Guard's lore thus far?
Oh, it's so completely unexpected. Based on their design, I didn't think that they would be as aggressive as they were. But once I take a look at it and how they were made to watch after breaking them, it fits the black outfit and like sort of seeing from the shadows your overseers.
Yeah, and they're always in the shadows. You don't know whether they're watching or not.
Exactly. And remember how I talked about the red eyes and the practicality of a group of bats watching you in the night sort of thing and creating that ominous feeling. I think that fits really well. I didn't actually pick up on the aggression. The red eyes now really make sense to me because of how very lunatic levels of aggressive they are. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think the aggressive part didn't quite come through.
To be fair, when their Primarch comes along, and I didn't say a lot of it because we went really long with this lore section, but I also think that the Carcharodons part was really important to me, but also I think it helps people make sense of the lore as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show that design versus lore part because, of course, they're aggressive and all of that sort of thing, right? But what is the big thing? Where are they getting their influence from?
Yes.
And it's from that Indonesian bloc because obviously they're going to take from their fears.
Yes, correct. And now I'm getting so much more context and more ideas on how we might actually redesign them. But I need to sort of narrow it all down.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, shall we move on to art? So once again, when the art starts off, I wanted to show you a standard Marine because, of course, you're going to guess them by now, but I wanted you to get an idea for what kind of people they are.
Oh, yes, of course. So the Raven Guard here, they've got the beaky helmet, which is great. And I like that there's, in this artwork, a more emphasis on the red eyes. So it really showcases that aggression. But I feel that the pose doesn't quite show that crazed aggression. It's just
I think that's because they're very tempered by their Primarch. I'm not sure if I mentioned just how much their Primarch tempered them.
Yeah, I had a feeling that
obviously
might have
once he sent all these people away, and I wanted to get to some other things, but the lore section was already long enough.
Yeah, but it's a very standard piece. It's just to show off the Marine, and you can see from the background it's very dark and it matches their theme and everything like that. But other than that, that's all I have to say on this.
All right, let's move on to the next piece. Now, speaking of mood pieces,
oh man, love this. I mean, look at that. It showcases that shadow thing that you've been talking about early on. You've got the smoke on the side, and it's almost like he's appeared from the shadows himself. And you can see that raven-like eyes coming out from the redness.
Speaking of, take a look at the shadows. What does it look like?
Oh, yeah, it's the shadow of the raven. I didn't notice that, but I really love how they've done the wings, the raptor power pack. It's very nice. And there's a lot of those feather-like carvings.
You can call it a jump pack because it is.
Oh,
it's a jump pack? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, jump pack.
Because they're very well known for having jump packs, this legion.
Yes, correct. Because I mentioned about them flying around a lot. And of course, Raven theme, if you're not flying, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I mentioned this earlier about having those feather-like carvings and things like that. And I think it really sells that ominous feeling.
Speaking of ominous. It's time for the next picture.
Oh, yes. Okay. And this one, actually, you can really see how it's a murder of crimes. But it gives you that feeling of the overseer vibe that you were talking about. These dark things flying over you. But I know that because this is Primarch is involved, it's not as aggressive as the original story of them and all that, but it does have that feeling of fear when I see the Marines in the background. But when I take a look at Corvus Corax in the front, he has a little bit more of a heroic pose with his claws and everything.
I think it's not only the claws, but also you see that shine in the background almost gives him a halo-like appearance.
It does. Also note that he doesn't have a helmet like the rest of them. So when you have the human face come through, it gives you a more human essence.
Yeah, he's much more humanized because you can empathize with that, whereas those other ones, like, they're almost alien-like beings.
Yes, correct. And he shows that stark separation between his legion and him.
All right, is there anything else that you think that you can talk about with this piece of art?
No,
all right, let's move on to the next one, and I think you'll really like this one.
This is pretty badass, I'll say that. I mean,
it's a great action piece, isn't it?
It's a really great action piece, and it's very emo. Like, okay, not emo, edgelord. Very
edgelord. It does look like it comes straight from an anime, doesn't it?
Yeah, because of that pose and the sword, and he's just like, I have slain you.
But also the enemy in the background and how he's fallen, I think that really shows that sort of anime-esque sort of thing. But this is why I show off a lot of fan works, because I think the fan works show how people perceive them.
Yeah, but the pose also shows how he's a very precise type of how ninjas fight and everything. It has that
I think that's
vibe.
not the reality with ninjas. The ninjas chose not to fight most of the time. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so it's got that sort of precision, that meticulousness that you talked about with the Primarch, and that has come through very well in this picture.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I wanted to show some of those other ones is it shows the difference between the two sides of the Legion.
Correct.
And I'm going to have to talk about that a bit more because most of their lore, in my opinion, is mostly to do with the Horus Heresy. So I'm going to have to include that with some of the post-heresy stuff.
Okay.
But it's included with some post-heresy stuff. So let's go. Let's get to post-heresy. I made a mistake. We've got to do final notes. Now that we're at final notes, does their design fit their lore?
I think for the majority of the part, it does. But on the other hand, I feel that aggressiveness did not come through as much. But I am also wondering if this is a World Eater moment where you have,
Those two separate
parts.
And I would very much say so, because there is one part that I'm going to tell you, because essentially Horus gave orders to Corax, and when he did, because as
a war master.
Yeah.
Right, okay, fair enough.
And when he did, he essentially sent the Raven Guard on this suicidal charge. But what he did there, Corax that is, he sent all the Terran troops, which essentially got all of them murdered, more or less. And after that, he vowed not to obey Horus after that. But also, that's what prevented the Raven Guard from going to Horus's side, because you can see how close they were with him.
Yes, correct. And you know how we pointed out how they're like the dark side of the moon. And I think Horus did something that was really like not what the other people would have done. It's like he took a look at them and he's like, I know exactly how to use you. And they played to the strengths of the original Raven God, and they let them sort of really shine with their aggressive, cruel nature.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, how that part of the Raven Guard would be actually loyal to Horus.
Exactly.
And I think Corax probably did the smart thing there to get rid of them.
Yeah, and this is one of the
way.
things that I wanted to talk about, because, I'm talking about how victims can become victimizers and stereotypes and that sort of thing, but they do exist, because we see, right, when it comes to all of these legions, there's a split between the Terrans and the New Guard,
Yes,
right?
correct.
And always they have mixed loyalties depending on which one they were.
And speaking of that, I feel like now that we have pointed out how they would be actually quite close to Horus's team, I think we could tear a page off the Sons of Horus book. And you know how I mentioned they've got the spikes on the pauldron, and they kept it quite simple with the showing of the aggression. And I think they could really take those elements and patch it on to themselves.
So I think that when it comes to the redesign of this Legion, you're probably going to have to do two redesigns.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do the Horus Heresy, which is going to be split in two between the more gentle...
Gentle, quote unquote.
Yes, gentle. Where you the quotation marks are doing heavy work here.
Yes, correct. So people who were, more on quote unquote Horus's side, and then the people who would follow their Primarch.
And then, of course, you're going to have to deal with the 40k designs. Are you prepared for that?
No, thank you.
Are you sure you don't want to look at them right now? Because it's time for Post-Heresy. Are you ready to be excited?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to show you the 40k designs. Yeah. Who's looking real happy?
Yeah.
Me.
Yes.
He's your first design.
Yeah, I think he looks cool. They have the claw hands. It's fitting for their theme, but other legions have that too. And one of the pauldrons has the Raven's Claw symbol, and of course, this is a raptor, so he has the jump pack. I think this could have been an opportunity for them to customize the jump packs with the wing add-ons, like we saw with the Preheresy artwork. I feel like they should have brought that in, because right now it looks really clunky. It doesn't look, streamlined and aerodynamic at all, so this is how I imagine them.
Okay, so you just essentially put a jump pack on them.
Yeah, different type with the wings, like basically try to follow more like the artwork rather than the template style.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I am wondering, because this is an older template, it makes sense for them to have that type of clunky looking backpack. And do you think this could be like the World Eaters, where they designed the Chaos one first, then they did the Pre-Heresy design, like they did it backwards? Do you think?
Yeah, of course they did, because this is the original 40k artworks, and then they do the pre-heresy stuff, and then you're seeing it now.
Fair enough, but I feel like this one with the wing add-ons is much better for their theme.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, you asked for it. You wanted newer art.
I never asked for Primaris. Okay? And
it looks like you did. That's why I'm putting it up.
At this point, why do we even bother? Because he's not really that different from the pre-heresy design, just that he is an armor upgrade, you know, because like there's still all the exact same things going on with him. You've got that type of Aquila, you've got the symbol, and you know they still look very militaristic. Nothing much different here. But I was thinking that, you know, not everyone's a raptor in this legion, right? Some of them, you know, walk on two legs. But so I was thinking, why not we try to add a bit more of that Corvus mask, that sharp beaky mask, and then we add on some of that black on black printing that we've been seeing, and we do it with the feathers on the shin, on the chest, and on the legs.
Oh, you got a redesign here. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I thought maybe like this, because we can't do too much with the Primaris. They're very specific in their branding, and they're also meant to be like legionaries.
We could do something.
Oh yeah, what's that?
We could ignore them completely and move on to the next one.
Oh yeah, let's see.
You're so excited to move away from the Primaris.
Yes.
So here's the next artwork.
Yeah. So this looks similar to our first raptor we saw, but he has the white head this time. And if I remember correctly, according to Codex Astartes, he is a veteran, right?
Is he a veteran?
Like the company, the top, the highest company. Is it 10? No. First company?
When you're talking about how he's got a white helmet.
Yes.
No, that's a part of one of their cultural traditions.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
That was, they spread the ashes of the land on their face.
And what does that signify?
It was a part of their war rituals.
Oh, because it looks like a straight up white head.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like smeared ash.
Yeah, I know.
What I mean?
I know.
Okay, well, whatever. I think this armor looks quite grungy, but that's mostly because of the art style more than anything else. But other than that, the design-wise, there's nothing much to decipher from this. But his pose looks like a bird that's caught the sight of his prey. So I think he has that predatory vibe here. But other than that, it still looks, you know, nothing much.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on to the next?
Yeah.
All right, you might have noticed that instead of using just templates, I've got you some more artwork sort of thing, because I think it really does show off the Legion a lot more.
Ooh, this is their scout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember how I said in the beginning that they look like SWAT?
Yeah.
I feel like this looks like that.
Yeah,
right?
I can see with this guy, but not so much with the other things, because this guy's got all sort of like...
Yeah, he's got the specialized goggles and some really intense sniper rifle. Sniper rifle. Sniper rifle.
Sniper rifle.
Sniper rifle.
Sniper.
Sniper. And he... Well, I think it fits their MO, you know, like the silent kill type.
Yes, my name is Sniper,
Okay.
and I'm the sniper, and I get the biggest snipes and the sniper.
Sniffless.
All right, I'm finishing this ridiculousness and moving on to another. I'm going to show you 4 Space Marines, and you're going to say they all look exactly the same, because that's what you do now.
Take a look at this, Cal. I'm so confused. The tactical markings are different, the mask is different, but other than that, they're both raptors.
Well, they're not actually raptors, okay? That's more a chaos thing. So these guys are just jump pack assault marines.
Oh, jump pack assault marines. Okay. Well, I can't tell the difference as to one has a different mask than the other and different tactical markings, but
so you're just saying that the differences are so inconsequential it doesn't matter.
Exactly. But I do like that they've got the yellow eyes this time. It looks more like a raven, although the red eyes make sense for their previous theme, but we have established that perhaps there is a divide in the
well,
Legion.
You'd think after 10,000 years they would have worked out that divide, wouldn't you?
Probably, yeah. So I think the yellow eyes is actually very fitting. I do think that all of the Legion should have Corvus pattern armor or Corvus style armor regardless, because that's kind of their thing. They, like other Legions I know, adopt the Corvus pattern armor, but I feel exclusively for them that's something that they should do.
Okay, next you're going to tell me that these next two are exactly the same.
Yup.
No, they're not. Take a look at this one's arms. They're both white. And then take a look at the other guy's arms. They're both black. And then, like, they've got the shoulder pads. They're different colors, you know?
Yeah, look, the main things that are different from the previous batch that we saw is that now they've got the gold trims going on and more white accents. So from that, I would derive that they're veterans or higher-ranking officials. But as to what is the difference between the two and their roles, I can't really tell. tell because it's just a head swap, really, and tactical marking swap. So unless I have real context into these things, because these are symbols that are specific to the companies, it doesn't really tell me much of a story.
I see. I see. Late in the game, you're giving up on your job of doing your design analysis.
I did my
All right,
job.
I guess it's time for us to move on to art. You know, I'm not even sure that you deserve some Raven Guard art. After those last performances...
Excuse
all right,
me.
are you going to do some proper analysis?
Yes, of course.
You have to promise. Yeah, all right.
I do.
Okay, here you go.
Okay, well, with this artwork, we really see the SWAT vibes coming in. As you can see, you've got the 3 Raven Guards over there. One of them is taking a look from a top-down angle, and the other 2 are outside, and they are watching carefully. And what I like about this, I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but the shape of the entryway actually looks like a keyhole.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So it's almost like, I'm peering into the keyhole, you know?
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but I do love the lighting and how they've used the warm lighting to express the Raven Guard and then the cool lighting to express the cultists.
Yeah.
And that's a clear way you can show a bit of a divide. Sometimes warm lighting will denote a more positive connotation. Other times, depending on things, it can be negative or like the heat of war and the fiery passions and things like that. So in this one, I think it's showing them in the positive light, the Raven Guard. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're going in to do a silent kill to snuff out the cultists here.
Yeah, the cultist leaders more specifically.
Ah, yes, correct. So as you can see, it sets the mood up really nicely. And I will like to point out that I think Phobos armor is really good for this Legion.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, when I was thinking about redesigns and things, or just designs in general, I felt that Phobos armor should be something that they use exclusively. But
maybe not exclusively, but they use extensively compared to other Legions.
Correct. Well, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, all right. I might let you. Now I know for sure that you don't deserve this artwork.
Oh, why not? Because this one shows off the cold nature of the Raven Guard. Because take a look at how much blue flames and blue lighting is being used here. So it is also quite chaotic and messy, right? Because it's showing all the activity of war. You've got like, helicopters or whatever that thing's called. What is that?
It's so funny because like you can name the armor marks, but because we haven't been doing vehicles this whole time, you're just like, what is that? A helicopter. But anyway,
rhino.
The whole reason I said you don't deserve it is because I think it's a really nice art piece.
I think it's a beautiful artwork. Does it happen to be box art? Because it has a little bit of box art vibes to me.
I couldn't say.
Well, anyhow, you can see, again, they're trying to play with the lighting here, where you have the warm underlighting coming up from the central area. Where are you looking? Hello?
At the guy's third arm, because they're obviously Gene Stealer cultists.
Oh, yes, I did notice that symbol on that one. I was like, is that a Gene Stealer right there? Oh, I couldn't be too sure. But yes, you can see the one that's already turned, and it showed them just, snuffing everyone out, snuffing everything out. And there's also a little bit of the quote-unquote foreshadowing. Lots of crows, actual real crows, are actually flying here and there around them. So that's, again, something to give a context to who this Legion is.
I think you mean to say lots of Corax.
Oh, lots of Corax.
Lots of Corvus.
Lots of Corvus Corax. Yeah, so I think this actually portrays them really well in that sense. And it gives that ominous feeling as well when crows are flying about.
Oh, I'm cutting you off. Yes, you're not allowed to look at this artwork anymore.
I want to see next one anyway.
No, okay. All right. Analyze.
Okay, I'm analyzing. And something I'm noticing is that they're using a lot of blue tones in the artworks that you have been showing me, except for the first one, of course.
Which would be 50% of the ones that I've already showed you.
Anyway, I think that actually is trying to show a divide between how there was reds in the eyes in the pre-heresy, and that's to show a lot of aggression. And then now they've progressively gone into the blues, which can be a more stable color.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of showing them to be moving towards a more positive direction.
I'm not sure a more positive direction, but definitely a more stable direction.
Stable, yeah. So here we have 2 scouts. They're hiding behind a wall, and there's a troop of Necrons coming their way. There's a lot of use of greens in here, which is mostly focused around the weapons, both for the scouts and the Necrons. And
as well as the eyes and goggles.
yes, correct. So I am am trying to figure out how to piece that symbolism together because...
I think that's the symbolism of danger in this because the blue is quite stable despite the storm in the background, which is also blue. It's this idea of the static versus the changing.
Ah, right. Yeah, because I was thinking to myself, why would you use the same green as the enemy in your weapons, right? I thought maybe they might use
I don't think
yellows.
it's that. I think it's just the artistic license to sort of use that so that you selectively focus.
Oh, yeah, that also is something that, people do. So
well, I've done the analysis now, so now it is time for you to actually do your analysis job analyzing.
Okay, so does that mean we're looking at the next one now?
Okay. Maybe I let you. Look at this art.
I'm looking, and how come that guy's got mechadendrites?
Because he's a tech priest.
Oh, I didn't think they had tech priests.
This is one of the reasons I often include some of those other artworks in the artwork section. Like I did with the salamanders, I wanted to show you that there's still a Space Marine chapter.
That's right, okay. And what I really like about the central figure is that you can see little talismans around his waist, and you can see that he has these silver wings at the chest area. And I think that's a great way to try and introduce those raven-like elements and a little bit of something different because we didn't really see talismans at all with the previous templates. So I think I like that because he is a priest and priests are very, ritualistic. So bringing in little elements like that help to give a little bit of context. And as far as the environment goes, it's very foggy. It shows as if they're coming in as a horde, a murder of crows. Coming in and, I really enjoy seeing that in the fog, there's one Marine in the background holding the banner there. So it shows a lot of pride. And I think this is a great artwork to show how they're that silent legion coming in to take people out from the shadows.
All right. Well, I think it's time for us to move on to Design versus Law. To understand the Raven Guard of today, we must go back to the Heresy. In fact, back to before the Heresy, to Gate 42.
What's behind Gate 42?
Enslaving alien parasites.
Oh, okay.
Parasitic psychic Xenos looking to enslave humans sounds like the perfect mission for the Raven Guard. Unfortunately for them, the War Master is in charge, and he suggests this almost suicidal charge against these creatures. Of course, that is not who Corax is. That is perhaps who the old Raven Guard were, but not him.
Yeah, he's more methodical. He's not going to just charge right into things.
In fact, you're 100% right. That's what he suggests. But of course, Horace says, no. You don't have the time for that. What kind of Gestalt consciousness might build up? What kind of psychic entity might they become? So, of course, he is forced into the position of making that suicidal charge. So what does he do? He puts all of his Terran troops as the vanguard because they are used to these kinds of assaults, and also it was noted that Corvus Corax heavily favoured the people from Deliverance, his homeworld.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a smart way to go about things.
Well, at least if you're him, because it seems as if you're having a major clash between the Terrans and yourself.
But I think it's also strategically good because let the people who know how to handle the situation the way that they do.
I do agree with that, but I mean, if he truly believed that, I think he would have maybe gone 70-25 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or had other guys backing them up, but I think he knew what this was and he was prepared to sacrifice them.
Right.
And as predicted, he lost substantial numbers of his troops. He went down to 80,000 Marines after this engagement. Now you can imagine you're already starting to blame yourself at this point, but this is only going to compound upon itself. Do you know who let Istvan happen?
Lorgar?
Well, it was the Raven who conquered the Istvan system, and he blamed himself for their recidivism.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so when they're ambushed, who does the Raven blame?
Himself.
And when the Raven cannot kill Lorgar, cannot kill the first heretic because Kurz intervenes, who does he blame?
He blames himself?
And when it comes to him trying to replenish his gene stocks using the Emperor's own formulas that are ruined by the Alpha Legion, who does he blame?
Probably himself again.
Now, he sides with Gilliman with splitting up the chapters, but in his heart of hearts, when he disappears, we know who does he blame.
Himself.
Do you think he's the kind of person who would have articulated his blame throughout all of this time?
I don't think so. I think he's probably the type of person who would keep it to himself, but mostly because he's trying to quickly find a solution to take back control of his failures.
Perhaps an apt description might be brooding.
Indeed.
Yes, so he's been brooding on all of this time. And so what he does is he leaves, and the last thing he says is nevermore.
So what does he do after this?
Do you want the real answer or do you want the meme answer?
Why not both?
Okay, well, the meme answer is he stays outside of Lorgar's palace, turning into a demon Primarch, and then going, "Give me some bread, Lorgar!"
I remember that, the give me some bread logo thing. I don't know why.
Yeah, but the honest answer is we truly don't know. We do believe that he's accessed some of his Primarch powers like the Lion has, because apparently he can move in and out of shadows now. But we don't know anything solidly at the moment.
Okay, sure.
I should also note, on a more serious note, that he ended every single one of the mutants that he created with his gene seed, and that's probably what tipped him over the edge.
Yeah, of course. I can imagine that he probably... Like, these are the what's left, right? What's left of the legion that he has already culled.
Yeah, and he decides that, we're just going to have to grow our legion the normal way after this happens. And I think that maybe when Gilliman decides that, he just goes, well, that's the end.
Yeah. Like, he's met with failure after failure, and that does things.
And that's why I wanted to start at before the heresy even, because I sort of wanted to compound those things one after the other so you could see his mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course, this affects his legion, now his chapter. They feel abandoned because the decision was made to break them all up, and then where is he? He disappears. They can look at all of the other legions and think, okay, the Space Wolves, they have the wolf time when Leman Russ will return in their time of greatest need. They can take a look at, for example, the Salamanders, and they can go, once we've collected all of the Pokemons, we can get our guy back. Right? But even being more serious, take a look at the Blood Angels. They can look at the sacrifice of their father, and they can be proud of that. What do the Raven Guard have?
Nothing.
Exactly. He just goes nevermore and ghosts them.
Sounds like a very Emperor move, my dude.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, now we know why Emperor likes him so much, eh?
I guess. But I think this is why they have such an emo look to them, a lot of them now, instead of having that very insane craziness to them, because they feel like the abandoned chapter.
Yeah, the abandoned child, right? Because
I guess.
This is the part of the Legion that was loyal to him, right? And they followed him through and through. They did their job, all just to be left behind.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that really does do a lot of psychological damage to them, because they're great at their job. They still do everything that the Raven Guard should do. But when we take a look at it, they have no hope.
Yeah.
But I think it's also because they have no struggle. When you take a look at how they operate, they're going to have a lot less casualties than some lunatic-style Marines, like, for example, the Black Templar, who are just coming charging across the screen. They're a lot more tactical. They're a lot more thoughtful. But not just that. They don't have any cultural struggles anymore, right? They're not all the Xeric tribes and filled with that anger from 10,000 years ago. They have no core struggle. They're not like the Blood Angels fighting against a great curse, or like the Dark Angels, where they've got a secret shame.
Right.
There's no part of them that makes it so that they have this great internal struggle. They're just good at their job. They do their thing. And conversely, they have nothing that they're looking forward to. They can't collect 9 artifacts and get their Primarch back.
They sound like a bedraggled office worker.
Yeah, I think you could look at them that way, because there's somebody who are very competent, but they don't have that higher purpose.
That's right.
Or at least that's how I see them. Anyway, I think we've hit as much as we can. So, Sunny, would you like to move on to Final Notes? Well, Sunny, does their design fit their lore?
Actually, I think it kind of does because, as you said, they're very competent. They know what they're doing and they're good at what they do. And they don't have the chains and the shackles of their past history anymore. So they're a blank slate. And so the template style does fit them. But I feel that the story element of where the Emperor kind of favors the Primarch didn't quite come through.
Well,
with
remember
the
that their
loyalist
Primarch
sections.
abandoned them, so they're not going to have that feeling of being favored, are they?
Yeah, but it's more about how the Primarch would have designed his legion.
I don't necessarily think that's true because I think that he was a pragmatist. I mean, look, he used murderers and psychopaths that were a part of the prison to launch his plans.
Fair enough. So I guess if you're putting it that way, then I guess it does fit.
All right, Sunny, it sounds like you're about ready for
Redesign.
Sunny, I'm going to surprise you.
Oh, yeah?
I've got a redesign.
Oh, do you?
Actually, it's for their lore. Now, remember how we were talking about how they don't have a core struggle?
Yeah.
I was thinking that one of their core struggles shouldn't be something that can be seen by other people.
Oh.
Right? I was thinking that their core struggle should be the dreams.
Ooh, okay.
And these are the dreams of their Primarch. They see their Primarch on these various worlds, and essentially they know that they've got to be at this location because it doth call to them. Not only this, I think that they could make great noir monster protagonists.
Ooh.
So they have the murder vision.
Ooh, that is very spicy.
Sometimes one of their number goes off by themselves, and it's almost this vision quest because they see somebody important being murdered and they're like, all right, I have to prevent this, and they go off to some world, right? And essentially they're the hidden monster in the dark that keeps taking people out.
Oh my gosh.
But see, they're doing it because they know that this person has to be protected, and at the end of the story they're like, oh, don't worry, I've been protecting you all along.
But then they ended up killing them. Because
No, I'm not saying killing them, but like they've killed all of the potential threats to this person all that time. So they've just been hiding in the shadows this whole time.
Right, that's cool. There's a bit of a redemption arc there.
But more or less my idea is give them something more to chew on because I feel like they don't have a lot to chew on. And I feel like psychic visions could really help, or the idea of them being connected literally to murder, like they can sense it and that sort of thing. I'm not talking about mass slaughter. I'm talking specifically about spiteful murder, that sort of thing.
I do think that actually adds a whole other level of interest to them. And yeah, to me, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, well, this is our first lore redesign, so tell us what you think, guys. I know that it's not that complex and it's not that fleshed out, but I thought you guys might like it. But now it's time for something much more visual. You've got some redesigns.
I do. So originally we talked about how they might be doing a World Eater and they have two different halves of the Legion. And so we're going to start off with the part of the Legion that had the aggressiveness about them, which is the Terran ones. And when I took a look at the keywords that we were using, cruelty, torture, victimizers, overseers, and I started to piece it together and I thought, wardens, prison wardens, that's what they sound like.
Yeah, that is what they sound like.
And I thought of the Sons of Horus template design that would be perfect for that.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about exactly, yeah.
And I used that as the inspiration and took a few things from his page. So what I did was try to bring in more hostile elements.
Yeah, so there's just one thing that really stands out for me.
Oh, yeah?
See that shoulder pad with the frost on it? Is it
It's not frost, it's meant to be like a claw.
I don't think that it looks that good.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, how about this?
Oh, yes, this is it exactly. You know, that Eye of Horus, because they're almost a chapter within the
them.
Legion. Yeah,
exactly. So I thought of overseers, and you know, that Eye of Horus concept was perfect, but I didn't want to use that particularly because it seemed like a copycat sort of thing, right? So I used like an eagle eye or a predator's eye all across the other parts of the armor, like in the center of the chest, on the shin, and I brought in a lot more triangular shapes. In fact, the bodice of the armor is actually just a collar piece from the Mark II armor, and I stacked it across each other to try and give it a little bit more of that aggressive look.
Yeah, the main thing that I noticed was more the eye than anything else.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed that they've got claws now.
Yeah, so I tried to bring in that claw-like element, and I used just like a metal arm for one side, and you've got the whip on the other side, and a skull just to show that intimidation factor, right? Look what I'll do to you if you mess with me.
Yep, I can see that.
And more of a spiky helmet, again, to try and bring in more of those sharp edges.
And this is copying that same template
from the Sons of Horus.
Yeah.
And for the beaky mask,
it almost looks Eldar now because of how long the helmet is.
Yeah, it does kind of look that way, doesn't it? But I just wanted to bring in a little bit more of those sharp shapes onto the face and reintroduce more reds, because we talked about how they didn't really have a lot of visual breakers in colors.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
The red is such a key because that shows that aggression, and it looked like a bloodied beak. So that's why I did it this way.
Ah, cool.
Right.
I think it's very cool. I think it fits the Terran troops exactly. I think I could see this being in a Horus Heresy book.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of this.
Yeah, I can see why.
Now for the Loyalist, I thought back to how you said that the Emperor favored the Raven, and he gave him all these secret, extra tidbits,
Well, he didn't give him all of these extra secret tidbits. He came in, he's like, here's the deal, buddy-o, and then he left. And then after that, he's like, yeah, I know your legion's ruined, and I can trust you, bud, so here's my secret.
So it's that trust, but he doesn't express this trust to everyone, right? It's like secret trust. So when you think about that, what's the secret trust in the opposite of a warden? A secret service.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to show that elite secret force side of this, right? That is the loyalist part of the Raven Guard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give a little bit more of a plume-like look for the helmet.
Yeah,
so
I think that looks very cool.
Little wisps of feathers, and I made it white because, again, it's just a visual breaker. I don't want everything to look black. And I tried to give them feather chain mail and try to introduce a little bit more golds in there as well to bring in that prestige.
Yeah, so once again, I think that's the one thing that I would note that I don't think quite fits with this, which is the shoulder pad once again. I do like those little gold ribbons, but I feel like it doesn't quite fit. I can't put my finger on it.
I was trying to go for like a segmented claw-like pauldron design. So I just made gold separations in that as well because I didn't want to make it look like it was extending past the pauldron like I did with the previous one before I changed it to the Horus Heresy. Sorry, the Eye of Horus symbol. I just thought that for that, it would fit more with the streamlined look of it. And I also removed some of the sharper edges around the elbows to try and make it more aerodynamic.
Well, one of the things that I think you did do really great is if we could grab both of them up on the screen right now, I think they have such a interesting dynamic because you can see how both of them are from the same legion, but they are not the same people at all. You look at them and you're just like, yeah, look, I don't want to be in a room with either of them, but if I have to choose, I'm going to take that guy, not this guy.
Exactly. And I think it needed that differentiator.
Yes.
And I'm honestly very proud of both these designs. So even if you don't like one of them, I still love it, okay?
Well, I think the other reason why it's really good is because you've added some texture to the body, which really helps differentiate when you've got all of just that black.
Yeah, and it just breaks it up a bit. And like here we are playing with the contrast of kind that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But it's actually a little bit more substantial.
Well, because like you've got all those triangles with this other one, and instead of having like just a big block triangles, you've got the scales, which feel a lot more gentle, feel like they come from an animal, whereas when they're on this other design, they feel very vicious. But I think that's about all we can say, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending your time with us. And as always, keep those brushes wet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See ya.
See ya.
And so his men died at Gate 42.
And so I trusted Horus nevermore.
And so the people rose up against the Imperium in Istvan.
And so I trusted the people nevermore.
And so the Istvan massacre happened.
And so I trusted my brother nevermore.
And so he attempted to rebuild his legion from nothing, and his plans were foiled by manipulations most cruel.
And so I trusted myself nevermore.
Then his legion was broken by his brother.
And so my legion was nevermore.
Doth quote the Raven.
Wow, he's kind of a bummer. Maybe him leaving wasn't such a bad thing. Anyway, we need 50 new members by the end of February, and we are already halfway there.
And so the members disappeared, and they were seen nevermore.
Whoa, we need to... Okay, so we need 50 Nevermores.
No, members.
25.
Nevermore, no.
Yeah, no, because, yes, we need 25
new members.
Because we got the 50, yes.
From the, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you.
STL.
STL's...
a thing.
Elite members, join today.
Yeah, and there's
Access
new
to
videos,
Discord.
Color Theory.
Color Theory.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Nevermore.
Uh-huh. Please join us.